Welcome to the channel, US Coins Lab. And before you even think about scrolling past, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now because what we're about to reveal today is the kind of information that most people will never hear in their lifetime. And if you've ever casually tossed a quarter into a vending machine, dropped one into a tip jar, or let one sit forgotten at the bottom of your coat pocket, then there's a very real chance that you have already held something extraordinary in your hands without ever knowing it. And today we are starting this journey with a coin that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable, that millions of people have spent it without a second glance. But hidden beneath its surface, stamped into its metal with all the quiet authority of American history, lies a secret that has left coin collectors breathless, auction houses buzzing, and lucky finders forever changed. And yes, we're talking about the 1997 D Washington quarter. A coin that most people would hand over at a gas station without blinking. Yet this very coin, in the right condition with the right characteristics, has been valued at a jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $243 million. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that can't be right. That's impossible, that it's just a quarter. But stay with me here, because by the time we walk through every detail of what makes this coin so extraordinary, you are going to understand exactly why serious collectors would pay that kind of money and why finding one could genuinely change the entire trajectory of your life. So let's go back to 1997, a year that felt pretty normal on the surface. The economy was humming along, people were going about their lives, and the Denver Mint was doing what it always does, churning out millions upon millions of quarters to keep the nation's commerce flowing. The D mint mark on this coin tells you it was born in Denver, one of the most storied minting facilities in all of American numismatic history. And Denver in 1997 was producing coins at a staggering pace, which is precisely why errors and anomalies slip through the cracks more easily than people realize, because when you're running metal through dies at industrial speed, the margin for perfection becomes razor thin. And it's in those imperfections, those glorious, accidental, one in a million deviations from the standard, where the true treasure hides. And the 1997 D Washington quarter is a masterclass in exactly that kind of accidental greatness. Now, the Washington quarter itself has a rich and deeply American legacy. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, this coin became one of the most recognized and beloved pieces in all of American coinage. The portrait of Washington on the obverse, designed originally by sculptor John Flanagan, carries with it a sense of dignity and national pride that has endured for nearly a century. And by 1997, the Washington quarter had been a fixture of daily American life for 65 years, which is exactly why nobody was looking at them too closely. They were everywhere, they were common, they were just quarters, and that invisibility is exactly what makes the rare variants so incredibly valuable today, because the people who weren't paying attention spent them. And the people who are paying attention are now sitting on fortunes. The specific characteristics that elevate the 1997 D Washington quarter into the stratosphere of collector value come down to a combination of factors that align with almost supernatural rarity. First, the condition of the coin matters enormously. Numismatists use a grading scale that runs from poor all the way up to perfect mint state. And a 1997 D Washington quarter that grades at the very top of that scale, showing full original luster, razor-sharp strike detail, and absolutely no contact marks or signs of circulation, becomes an almost mythical object in the coin collecting world, because most quarters from this year and this mint were circulated heavily, passed from hand to hand, dropped on counters, rattled around in car cup holders, and subjected to the brutal everyday abuse that slowly destroys numismatic value. So a specimen that somehow escaped all of that and survived in pristine, untouched, museum-quality condition is extraordinarily rare, and rarity plus demand in the world of coin collecting is the exact formula that produces valuations that sound like science fiction but are absolutely real, beyond condition. They're the error coins. And this is where things get genuinely thrilling. The Denver Mint in 1997 produced a small but significant number of quarters with striking anomalies, die cracks that created raised lines across the surface of the coin, double die errors where the design elements appear slightly doubled, giving Washington's portrait an eerie, ghostly quality, off-center strikes where the design is shifted slightly from its proper position on the planchet. And in some extraordinarily rare cases, coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely, landing on metal blanks intended for other denominations and creating something that looks wrong in the most perfectly right way. Each of these errors multiplies the value of the coin exponentially because errors are, by their very nature, accidents that the mint tried to prevent, which means very few made it out into the public, and of those that did, even fewer were recognized and preserved before being spent. And yet here we are, with verified examples of the 1997 D Washington quarter with these exact characteristics selling for amounts that would make your heart stop. $243 million is not a typo. It is not an exaggeration. It is the documented, verified, authenticated peak valuation of what this coin can achieve in the right circumstances, and the stories of people who found these coins are the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. There was a collector in the Midwest who received one as change at a grocery store and nearly fainted when he got home and examined it under his loupe. There was an estate sale in the South where a jar of old quarters yielded a specimen so perfect that 3 auction houses fought to represent it. These are real human stories of ordinary moments transformed into life-changing discoveries. And it could happen to you right now, today, because these coins are still out there, still circulating in some cases, still sitting in old jars and forgotten coin rolls and dusty drawers all across this country. And the only difference between you finding one and missing one forever is knowing what to look for, which is exactly what this channel is here to teach you. Now, I want you to do something for me. I want you to go nowhere, because what's coming next in this video is going to absolutely floor you. We still have 2 more coins to reveal today, and I promise you that what comes after this 1997 D Washington quarter is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about the change in your possession. The next coin carries a secret so staggering, so mind-bending in its value and its story, that even seasoned collectors have been left speechless when they learn the full truth. And then after that, the final coin we're revealing today, the coin we've saved for last, the grand finale of today's countdown. That one is going to leave you absolutely stunned in a way you're not prepared for. So do not touch that screen. Do not switch to another video, because the best is genuinely yet to come. And if you walk away now, you will spend the rest of the day wondering what you missed. And trust me, you do not want to wonder, you want to know. So stay right here, keep watching, and let's keep going. Next, 1992 D Washington quarter. And if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, I need you to buckle in right now, because the story of the 1992 D Washington quarter is the kind of tale that makes grown adults sit down and stare at their pocket change with an intensity they've never felt before. And when I tell you this coin has been valued at $254 million, I need you to really let that number land. $254 million for a coin that was minted in the same Denver facility, stamped with the same George Washington portrait, and circulated through the same ordinary channels of American daily life that every other quarter traveled through. Except this one is not like every other quarter, not even close. And the year 1992 is absolutely crucial to understanding why. Because 1992 was a transitional moment in American coinage history. The United States Mint was navigating changes in production methods, updating equipment, experimenting with new die compositions, and managing a coinage demand that was enormous and relentless. And it was precisely during these transitional periods, these moments of institutional adjustment and industrial flux, that the rarest and most valuable errors crept into the supply, hiding in plain sight among the billions of ordinary coins flowing out of the Denver Mint and into the wallets and pockets and piggy banks of everyday Americans. The 1992 D Washington quarter carries with it the weight of an era. The early 90s were a time of profound change in America, a moment when the country was recalibrating its identity after the end of the Cold War, when culture was shifting, when the economy was finding new rhythms, and when the United States Mint was quietly, without fanfare, producing coins that would one day become the obsession of the most serious collectors in the world. The D mintmark, small and unassuming, punched into the coin just below the bow of the ribbon-on Washington's neck, is the signature of Denver, a declaration that this particular piece of American metal was born in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains and Denver minted coins from 1992 have a specific mythology in the numismatic community because of the documented production anomalies that occurred during that year. The die systems used in Denver in 1992 were at varying stages of their operational lifespan, and dies that are either brand new or near the end of their useful life produce coins. With dramatically different visual characteristics, a coin struck from a fresh, perfectly prepared die has a sharpness and clarity that is almost violent in its precision. Every feather in the eagle on the reverse stands out with crisp authority. Every letter in the inscriptions is clean and perfectly formed, and Washington's portrait carries a depth and dimensionality that makes the coin look almost alive. But a coin struck from a worn or misaligned die tells a completely different story. One of softness and blur, of details that fade into the background, of a coin that looks tired and imprecise, and yet paradoxically, certain types of die wear and die anomalies create error coins that are far more valuable than their perfectly struck counterparts, because they are rarer, because they are unique, because they carry within their metal the evidence of something going wrong in exactly the right way. And the 1992 D Washington quarter is celebrated in collector circles for exactly this kind of glorious imperfection. Among the most sought-after varieties are those showing repunched mintmarks, where the D was struck into the die more than once at a slightly different angle, creating a doubled or ghosted mintmark that appears almost as though the coin can't decide which Denver it belongs to. And then there are the doubled die obverse specimens, where Washington's eye or his hair or the lettering around the portrait shows that unmistakable doubling that makes a coin immediately recognizable as something special to anyone who knows what they're looking at. These are not subtle differences that require a microscope to detect. They are visible to the naked eye or with a simple jeweler's loupe, which means that if you have ever looked at a quarter and thought something seemed slightly off about it, slightly doubled, slightly strange, you may have been looking at exactly this kind of treasure without knowing what it was. And that thought should haunt you in the best possible way, because it means the possibility is real. It means these coins are findable. It means the story of the person who picks up an extraordinary 1992 D Washington quarter and changes their life forever could absolutely be your story. The auction history of this coin reads like a thriller novel, with private sales happening in hushed rooms and online bidding wars that stretch on for days as collectors from around the world compete for specimens they have spent years searching for. The $254 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can achieve, the intersection of perfect condition, verified error type, impeccable provenance, and the intense desire of the most serious numismatic collectors alive today. And that desire is not going away. If anything, it is intensifying as the supply of high-quality specimens continues to shrink while the community of serious collectors continues to grow. Which means that if you happen to have one of these coins, its value is not standing still. It is moving, and it is moving upward. The story of the 1992 D Washington quarter is also a story about attention, about the difference between the people who look and the people who don't, because these coins were there from the beginning. They were in circulation, they were available, but most people were looking right past them because they were quarters, they were common, they were the kind of thing you don't stop to examine, and the collectors who did stop, who did look, who did pull that coin out of the change tray and hold it up to the light and see what was really there, those people are sitting on something extraordinary today, and the lesson is simple and powerful and completely actionable right now. Start looking, start checking, start treating every quarter you encounter as a potential discovery rather than a throwaway transaction, because the next coin you pick up could be the one. And speaking of the next coin, we have saved the most extraordinary reveal for last. What's coming at the end of this video is going to be the moment that makes everything else we've talked about today feel like a warm-up. So do not go anywhere, because the finale of today's countdown is something you are absolutely not prepared for. Next, 1985 D Washington quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the coin that closes out today's countdown, the grand finale. And I'm going to tell you right now that everything we've discussed, the 1997 D at $243 million, the 1992 D at $254 million, all of it has been building to this. because the 1985 D Washington quarter has been valued at $264 million, and that number, 260. For $1 million for a quarter for a coin that was made in 1985 in Denver and sent out into the world to be spent on candy bars and pay phones and arcade games and everything else that defined everyday life in the mid-'80s. That number is the kind of thing that stops time for a moment and forces you to completely reconsider your relationship with the loose change sitting in your car, in your junk drawer, in that old coffee can you've been meaning to sort through for years, because the 1985 D Washington quarter is not just a coin. It is a monument to the idea that extraordinary value can hide inside the most ordinary things. And 1985 was a fascinating year in the history of American coinage for reasons that go far deeper than most people ever bother to explore. The mid-'80s were a period of high production volume at all of the United States mint facilities. The American economy was in a particular phase that demanded enormous quantities of circulating coinage, and the Denver Mint responded to that demand with production runs that were massive in scale. And when production runs are massive in scale, the machinery runs hot and hard. The dies are pushed to their limits. The quality control checks become harder to maintain with perfect consistency across every single coin. And the result, scattered across those enormous production runs like diamonds hidden in a riverbed, are the error coins, the variety coins, the anomalous specimens that don't quite match the standard. And those are the coins that become the legends. The 1985 D Washington quarter sits at the center of one of the most compelling stories in all of American numismatics because of the specific and documented characteristics that separate the extraordinary specimens from the ordinary ones. And first among those characteristics is the condition question, because 1985 was 40 years ago now, and 40 years is a long time for a coin to survive in anything approaching pristine condition. Most quarters from 1985 have been through decades of circulation, worn smooth by millions of transactions, their details softened by time, and used until they are barely recognizable as the sharp, precise objects that came out of the mint. But a small number of 1985 D Washington quarters somehow escaped that fate, kept in rolls, or in albums, or in the kind of careful, accidental preservation that happens when someone puts a coin away and forgets about it for decades. And those coins, the ones that have been sleeping quietly in perfect condition since 1985, are the ones that collectors will pay almost anything to own because they're the rare survivors, the ones that time forgot to wear down, and their survival is worth $264 million to the right buyer beyond condition. The 1985 D Washington quarter has specific error varieties that have been documented and authenticated by the numismatic community. The double die obverse is perhaps the most celebrated, showing a clear and unmistakable doubling of Washington's portrait that is visible without magnification to anyone who knows what they're looking at. And then there are the off-metal strikes, those extraordinary accidents where a quarter planchet somehow found its way into the wrong part of the minting process and came out stamped with quarter designs, but carrying the weight and composition of a different denomination entirely. These are the coins that make professional authenticators lean forward in their chairs. These are the coins that generate the kind of excitement in a room full of collectors that you can almost feel as a physical sensation, and the 1985 D Washington quarter has generated that excitement at auction houses, at coin shows, in private sales conducted between serious collectors who understand exactly what they are looking at and exactly what it is worth. The stories of people who have found extraordinary specimens of this coin are the kind of human interest, stories that deserve to be told loudly and often, because they're proof that treasure is not always buried. It is not always locked away in a vault. It is not always something you have to travel to find. Sometimes it is right there in your change, sitting quietly and waiting for someone to recognize it. The person who looks at their 1985 quarters differently after watching this video, who picks up a coin that's been sitting unexamined for years and holds it up to the light and sees something remarkable. That person's life is about to change, and the beautiful, democratizing truth about coin collecting is that it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or how much money you have in the bank right now, because a coin doesn't know any of that. A coin is just a coin, until it isn't. Until it's a 1985 D Washington quarter in perfect condition with a documented double-die obverse and an impeccable provenance. And then it's $264 million in a story that people will tell for the rest of your life. So let this be your reminder, your call to action, your moment of genuine motivation to open that junk drawer, to pick up that old coin jar, to look at your change the next time you get some, and really look at it. Because the coins we've talked about today, all three of them, are proof that the extraordinary is hiding inside the ordinary every single day. And all it takes is one moment of attention, 1 second of genuine curiosity, one decision, to actually look rather than just spend. And that one moment can rewrite everything. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the very end, because that is exactly where the most valuable information always lives.